Hey, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a free training provided by the Sales Mastermind Association. We're going to try to do this every Tuesday and keep it free for anybody on the planet who finds out about it. So spread the word, get people to register for this workshop. There's no cost and no obligation. So as usual, in the hour, I'm going to do my very best to make this 60 minutes, or if we go a little bit longer, worth your time. I know you have a lot of other choices in how you spend your time. So I want to make sure that you get maximum value out of the time you spend here. I appreciate that. So today we're going to talk about objections, and we're going to talk about different objection handling techniques. But what we're really going to talk about is understanding objections from the customer's point of view. As you know, everything that I teach is all about trust-based selling. So trust is, to me, the most important element in any sale. And once you gain trust, you still do get objections. But I want to understand, or I want you to understand, where these objections are coming from in the customer's mindset and how to overcome them. So in my opinion, and we're creating a list of objections here as we go, almost every objection can be related back to customer's state of mind. So I want to show you what I mean by that. So if you have any other objections, just put them in the chat, and then we'll come back to this slide and we'll address them using a couple of different techniques. But really, most importantly, is I want to find out where these objections are coming from, meaning what's going on in the customer's mind when they're saying these types of things. As I said in the book, every objection has its root in customer psychology. However, when you are successful in building a trust connection during a sales call, almost all objections are removed. In other words, if I am doing a back and forth and this person trusts me, and let's say it's a referral and their friend told them to call me, and I do a great job building trust and welcoming them, making them feel important and all that, they completely trust me. There still are objections, but not the normal objections. What you're left with when you have a trust connection is you're left with situations where the puzzle pieces don't fit. Like, this really isn't quite the right fit for you, or you have a particular situation that I really can't help, or you really genuinely can't afford it. It's not like you're trying to make an excuse or throw up a smokescreen that you can't afford it. When you build a trust connection, almost all of the objections that we're going to talk to are removed, and what's left are fundamental problems. And I don't consider those objections. I call those more like puzzle pieces, trying to, challenge to solve a problem. But you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm going to share with you what I call the customer psychology model. And in the customer psychology model, it's pretty clear that 4 things have to happen in the customer's mind before they're going to be able to buy from you. If any of the boxes remain unchecked, even only one of them, then psychologically the customer cannot buy from you. It's like there's a block there. They literally can't move forward unless they check all 4 of these boxes. And I'm going to go through them right now. The first element in customer psychology, and I think this one personally is the most challenging, is desire. You've also heard it called need, want, pain, problem. Got to have it, right? If there's no problem, there's no sale. If the customer doesn't really want what you have, you can talk all day till you're blue in the face. They just don't want what you have. They're just not into you. It's like if you're trying to ask a girl on a date, she's not into you. She's not into you. It's just not going to happen, dude. It just isn't going to happen. There has to be a need, a want, a problem, a pain, a desire, an urgency. If you don't have that, you just got nothing. The rest of the time that you're spending is a waste of time. So in the way I teach to sell is trust-based selling. What you want is you want to spend, I'd say, as a rule of thumb, the first half of the sale. Now, that's a big chunk of time. That could be anywhere from 3 minutes to 30 minutes to 3 or 4 phone calls over a period of several weeks. And the purpose of that beginning part is not to sell them anything. It's to, I'm going to say this carefully, get the customer to admit that they have a problem. If the customer doesn't admit they have a problem, there's no sale. Right? I may know that they need what I have. And somebody here said health insurance. I know you're paying $1,000 a month for health insurance, and I'm going to show you something for $400 or $500 or $600 a month. So I know that you want what I have. But if you don't tell me that you want it, there's no sale. In other words, it doesn't matter what my psychology is. It's the checkbox in the customer's mind. If that particular checkbox is not checked off, there's no point in moving forward. And I believe this to be, at least in my personal experience, the most difficult thing to overcome, because people hold their cards close to the vest. Even if you've talked to them a few times, they still hold their cards close to the vest. They're not really willing to share with you all the problems that they have. They're not willing to admit that their business isn't going the way they want, or they're spending too much, or they're unhappy with what they have. They may have started out saying it, but for whatever reason, in other words, you have to be good at listening, building trust, asking questions, and not talking so much, because the more you talk, the more you tell them that they want it, the less they want it, right? I could tell you, you need to join the sales mastermind all you want, right? But if you don't want to join, then you're not going to join. It doesn't matter what I think you should do. It only matters what you think you should do. It doesn't matter what you say to the customer about health insurance. It only matters when they start to express problems. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I say this over and over again. In the beginning of the sale, the customer's all bunched up. You want to have a conversation. Let's use health insurance. You want to have a conversation about health insurance or whatever it is that you sell. They don't really want to talk about it so much, right? So you could talk about it all day. So until the customer releases all this psychic tension or this psychic energy and opens up to you and has a face-to-face conversation, there's really no sale to be made. And most salespeople will say, well, you sell health insurance. What are you paying for your health insurance? I'm paying $1,000 a month. $1,000 a month. That's a lot of money for health insurance. Let me tell you my insurance. Mine's only going to be $400 a month. Are you in front of a computer? Let me show you this. Let me show you how it works. Notice what happened. He answered your question, and then you went off and talked. This is what the vast majority of salespeople do. Undoubtedly, folks here do it. I've done it many, many times. The customer gives you a little bit, right? And you run off and start your presentation because, oh my God, you're so qualified, $1,000 a month, I can save you money. But they're not qualified because they haven't told you that they want the health insurance yet. The key to this scenario is $1,000 a month. That seems like a lot of money. Are you okay with that? Hell no, I'm not okay with that. Well, tell me more. Oh, I have Blue Cross Blue Shield and it was awful. 3, 4, 5 questions later, they've released their psychic energy. So do you want to take a look at a less expensive policy? No, I don't. Oh, maybe if you keep talking, all right, I'll maybe listen to you, because you went on and on. But once you've asked them a few questions, once you've opened up the conversation, once you've earned their trust, once you've gotten them to release all of their psychic energy, would you mind if I showed you something that might be less expensive? Yes, I'd like to see that. In other words, when the customer's like this, they may need it, but it doesn't matter because they didn't say they need it. You told them they needed it. When the customer releases their psychic energy, that's why I say you have to spend the first 50% of the sale, maybe longer, maybe shorter, but usually around half, maybe even a little bit longer, to get them to open up, express their psychic energy, and really explore the problem, the pain. 95% of salespeople do it the wrong way. Customer answers one question. Yeah, I pay $1,000 a month. Oh my God, that's crazy. Well, you'll only be paying $500 a month for ours. Let me show you how ours works. And meanwhile, the customer never released the psychic energy. And they're sitting there, they have a need, but they're not telling you about it. This is, of all the 4 elements, this is the most important element. And I cannot tell you how many salespeople move the process along without first establishing the fact that there's a problem or pain. They just assume there's a pain. They just assume that this customer is exactly the same as the last one I sold. And so, of course, they have the same problems, but they don't. They're all different. Even if they do have the same problems, it doesn't matter. They have to come to that conclusion themselves. So that's the first element. The second checkbox that must be checked off in the customer's mind is certainty. This just makes sense. If they think there's a better deal out there, if they're just not sure, and there might be they would owe it to themselves to go research, right? Again, Well, I'll bring this all back to objections in a minute, but this would be the objection of, I got to shop around. I have to be sure there's no better deal out there. So one of the main purposes of your presentation is to establish certainty that, sir, it doesn't matter how many years you spend talking to other salespeople, looking at other solutions. I can assure you there's nothing better that you're going to find. In fact, let me bring in some of my competitors right now. This guy, he does this. It's a great program, but it's twice as expensive, et cetera. The whole point of your presentation, the whole point in the beginning of the sale is to build desire, to get them to express the fact that they would like to change, that they need something different. The whole point of the presentation is to build certainty. You could look for 1,000 years. You're never going to come to a spot right now that's better than where you are right now. This is what you're going to do. I'm certain, you're certain. This is the only way we can move forward is if they themselves see that, I guess it really would be a waste of time for me to shop around. The third psychological element is trust. They're all important, but trust is key. If they don't trust you, they cannot buy from you. If they don't like you, I guess you could buy something from someone you don't like, but it does happen, but not as often. Usually they have to like you. They have to be comfortable with you. They have to believe in you. They have to know that you have credibility, that your company has credibility, that your product or service will work for them. They have to believe 100% that you really do have their best interests in mind. If they don't trust you, they cannot and will not psychologically move forward. And the best way to build trust, as I've said in every other workshop, and they're all posted online, the best way to build trust is to learn to listen to people. Going back to that example I just said, they give you a little bit of information and you jump into your presentation as if sharing your presentation with them is what's going to build trust and credibility. Quite the opposite. Holding your presentation back, letting them express themselves, asking more questions, building up their importance, making them feel respected, making them feel like they're the star of the show. That's how you build trust psychologically with people, not by presenting to them, not facts, not figures. You build trust by listening. When you listen to people, it shows attention and respect. Very few people get listened to. Very few, very, very few good listeners in the world. The single easiest, fastest, most guaranteed way to build trust is to try to learn to listen. Learning to listen is difficult for most people. It's certainly challenging, but it's well worth the effort. So that's the third psychological element. If the customer doesn't have a problem, let's say they do have a problem. If they're not certain that you're the best available, let's say they are certain that you're the best available. If they don't like you and trust you and believe you, they're still not going to buy from you. If any one of these four is unchecked, they cannot move forward. And then finally, the fourth one is commitment. As most women will tell you, most men have fear of commitment. They don't like making commitments, and it's a human fear. We're fearful of the unknown. It is very difficult for us to move forward, to take action, because the reason it's difficult is because we don't really know the outcome. We can imagine the outcome, but we don't really know the outcome. I would like to read something to you about this decision process that people go through. Let me talk about this. I wrote it. I didn't make slides about it, but I do want to share this with you. So a lot of people really struggle with making decisions or making commitments. And in fact, it's just true. Some people are going to always be much harder to close than others, even when you built trust. Just some people have a different approach to how they make decisions. And some people just have negative reaction when you ask them to make a decision. You have to expect negative reactions. You have to practice them and prepare with them. And you always have to know the next steps when you get a negative reaction. Not everybody is going to close the way you want them to close. Some people are going to be much more difficult. A weak or average salesperson can close the easy ones because those people are willing to make a decision. But what you have to learn to really move up is you have to learn to close the tough ones. So every human being has a natural fear or a hesitation about making a bad decision. And in the environment that we have in this world where salespeople are seen as untrustworthy, your customer's guard is always up. always. Then you always know that, right? So when it comes time for the close, when it comes time to make a decision, you're going to hear objections, not because they're real objections, but because the customer's guard is up. They're just nervous about making a mistake. So you have to train yourself to expect these negative reactions. And this is really important. It's okay for them to have their guard up. It's okay for them to have their fears and their false assumptions about moving forward. It's okay for them to have a negative attitude. It's okay if they don't see things the same way that you see them. That when you, as soon as you say, wait a minute, it's okay that you're nervous about, as soon as you say, hey, it's okay, not a problem, and you mean it, because sometimes you might say it's not a problem, but you're actually internally upset with them for not moving forward, but it's okay. When I hear people hesitate toward the end, not a problem, it's okay. It really is. We'll work through it. So I want to analyze with you how people make decisions. I want to show you what's actually going on in their minds, because once you understand how people come to make a decision from a mind point of view, from a psychology point of view, then it's really easy to see where the objections are coming from and how you can help them overcome their fears and limitations. So at the moment we make a decision, no matter what the decision is, we are, as human beings, we imagine what the future is going to be like once we make that decision. We can't predict the future, but we trick ourselves into imagining that we can predict the future. And here's what I mean. It's like, if you picture the world out there, the future, it's like billions of dominoes. You know, anything could happen. Any one of the dominoes could tip and a whole sequence could go off. What happens is when you make a decision, or when your customer's making a decision, they're imagining one path through those infinite number of dominoes. They say, okay, I'm going to make this decision, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and that's going to happen. And in the future, they see the resolution of those dominoes, right? And they make the decision based on what the future looks like or feels like to them. If the dominoes lead to a happy future, that's when they buy. If the dominoes lead to a negative future, they don't buy from you. But most commonly what happens is the future for them is cloudy. They're not seeing it. They're certainly not seeing the same thing you're seeing. They're not seeing good or bad. They just don't see how it all connects and what the future is going to be like. And so those folks also don't buy. So like, for example, the example I use is like when parents decide to get a puppy for their kids. They have this imaginary future in their minds about a happy home with the kids playing with the dog. They see a picture where everybody's happy because the children are happy. And so they buy the puppy, right? Little do they know the dominoes are not going to go exactly like they thought. Puppy's going to chew the furniture. All kinds of things happen, but it's a puppy, so it's okay. This is how your customers are making a decision. The most common objection or excuse that people use to avoid buying is the universal fear of spending money. It's the easiest objection for your customers to hide behind, and they hide behind it all the time. I can't spend money right now, right? I don't have the budget for that. I really can't afford that. That's much more than I wanted to spend, right? They are in a negative mindset. It's dominated by lack, meaning I don't have enough money and I'm never going to have enough money. And what's going on in their mind is they have a string of dominoes. The first one shows them spending this money with you, which leads to more lack in the future. And their dominoes just a disaster. I'm going to spend this money, then I'm going to have less and less and less. Then I'm going to have to do this. And I can't do that. I don't have enough money. So most people that you're selling to are stuck in this mindset of lack. It's just the way 90% of people go around in the world. You have to show them a future that's more valuable than money, because they're focusing on the disappearing money. You need to focus them on the dominoes, all the things that are going to happen, the bright future that's ahead of them. So if the picture is cloudy, or they see more problems, or they see a potential disaster from buying your thing, they're not going to buy. They aren't sold. And this is where all the resistance and the negativity and the objections come from. It's not you. It's that they're not seeing what you want them to see. They're not on your wavelength. They're still on their own wavelength. And if that wavelength is negative or cloudy, they're not going to buy. So your job is to build the perfect series of dominoes and show them how it leads to the future. So then there's another type of customers, and I call them the super resistant. The super resistant customers have the money, but because of their personal style, they don't allow people to help them. So they have to be in control, and they have to feel like, they're going to decide. I call these are super resistant people. They know that the solution that you're offering them, whatever, if they do it, isn't going to be in their best interest, but they're more focused on the people and the personalities and the process rather than the end result. It's hard for them to talk about the end result because they can't get past the process. So to defend themselves, these people will push you over to an assistant. Talk to my assistant. Talk to this person. They know everything. Or they'll string you along and not make a decision, or they want to decide they're going to do it themselves because they know more than you and they can do it better than you, or they're going to find a better alternative or make a better choice. They deflect the idea of making a decision. This is really important to understand. When it comes to that final key, that word commitment, people deflect the idea of making a decision to avoid talking about the problem. They focus on the ego or the status or the decision process or how it's going to affect other people. And what they're really doing is they're deflecting opportunities to fix the problem. And if you would go back in history, you would find that they've had this problem multiple times. They probably talked to multiple salespeople who could have solved the problem, but the problem hasn't gone away because they're so super resistant. These are the ones you really want to train for. If it's easier, that's great. But you want to train for the most difficult customers. First of all, there's the ones who are in lack, who just say out of habit, I can't afford it, I don't have the money, right? We'll show you how to work with them. But more important is you want to train for the ones that do have the money, but still give you the runaround because they have to dominate the whole show. So for these super resistant customers, you want to explain to them that they're deflecting. Right? You have to explain to them, I understand you want me to talk, I talked to your assistant. Now I'm back to you. You're deflecting the problem to somebody else. And the way to work with them is to continue the strategy of listening. Just listen, empty yourself, empathize with them, and let them continue to express all their problems until they finally are able to let go of their own fears. Can you close every super resistant person? Absolutely not. Some of them absolutely will never allow you to close them. That's their decision, right? But many of them, if you listen to them, respect them, honor all the problems that they're having, yeah, that's got to be a tough, I mean, you've been burned so many times in the past. I understand. You don't really know who you can, I get it. Tell me more about that. Let them go on, let them go on. And now once they've expressed all that negativity, you can take another shot at closing them. Now we're back to this customer psychology. So let's go back. So these are the 4 elements: desire, certainty, trust, and commitment. I think if you analyze the way you buy, when you buy and why, this explains why people say yes and why they say no. It's pretty easy to see why people would say no if they have a fear of making a decision, or they are a problematic decision maker, if they don't trust you, if they're not certain, they need to shop around, or desire. So let's go back to the beginning where we made a list of our objections. You can see that, right? So let's try to tie each objection to one of the 4 elements.
I have a new one for you, Alan.
Yep.
Check the chat box.
Way more than I need. So it's not a good fit. It's more than I need. I like the, it all sounds great, but.
Yeah, I hear that often selling managed IT services. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's a fantastic package, but I got to be honest with you, it's probably way more than I need.
Yep, well, you can work with that. So hold on. All right, so for each of these, let's tie it to one of the 4 psychological elements. Let's start with think about it, because that's probably the toughest one that most people have, because it's a reasonable request. You've given me a lot of information to think about. I really need to process this. Call me tomorrow, call me next week, call me next month. Let me think about it. Where do you think that comes from? Desire, certainty, trust, or commitment?
Commitment.
Any other answers?
They just don't want to commit.
Could be. This one happens to be all 4. This could be this particular objection really could come from anywhere, and it's our job to find out what the problem is. Are you having just trouble making a decision? Is it that you don't really want it? Because by the way, if someone comes to your door and they're selling you something you don't want, like I don't know, lawn mowing services that come to your house. We're going to mow your lawn. Well, I already got somebody that mows my lawn, right? I'm good. So, they're a door-to-door sale. They're going to go on. So you say, you know what? Let me think about it. It could be desire. It could be, you know what? I really don't need that right now. Or I don't trust you. You just knocked on my door. Or, that sounds great, but I'm going to still shop around. Or, I just need to think about it. I just really can't make a commitment. That's the catch-all, but it's your job to find out why they're saying that. Not just that they're saying it. And you could say this for all objections. Your job is to really, is it that you don't trust me or don't believe me or don't believe the company? Is it you're not certain? Is it you just don't really care that much? It's not that big a problem? Or are you just afraid to say yes? So, okay. So maybe in the future, call me in a few weeks. I can tell you what that one is. If you hear that one, that's a trust one. They didn't say anything about the money. They didn't say they don't want it. All they said is, you know what, sounds great, but call me in a few weeks. Same thing with not ready to, all these are the same. These are what are called delay objections. These are saying, I definitely see the value, but I'm not ready. Maybe in the future. Sounds great, but not ready to make a decision. Let me think about it. Call me in a couple of weeks. Maybe we'll do it in the future. Right? All of these are called delay objections. They're the toughest ones to get past, but this is the one you have to prepare for. And you have to say, when you handle this objection, the way I say it is, wow, I really thought you were going to move forward. I thought this was a great fit. You told me you had this problem. We explained how it was going to solve the problem. What is it that you're still not certain about? God, I'm shocked. I thought for sure. What is it? You must be uncertain about a few things. What is it? Talk to a partner. Anyone want to give that one? We can rule out desire because they're probably going to buy it from you or somebody else. Just have to talk to somebody else. No, but shop around is the big one that we don't have on our list. Now, shop around is right out of certainty, right? If they're not certain, they can't move forward. And if they believe that there's something better out there, they have to do it, right? They have to shop around. There's no other choice. Do you see how all of these, let me go back to the picture. Do you see how each objection, these are the roots of the objection. Does that make sense? There's something going on in the customer's mind. You haven't checked the box yet. And because you haven't checked the box, they can't say yes for one reason or another. And this is another thing that I just have to say this. You may disagree with me, but all of this sales training over the last 5, 10, 15 years has all been very negatively oriented. The customer, the buyers are liars. They wiggle out of it. It's their problem. It's not their problem. It's your problem because you didn't sink the hook in deep enough. You didn't make such a case for yourself that it was obvious there's no better solution. You didn't listen to them. You talked over them. You spent 85% of the time talking instead of 85% of the time listening. So they don't trust you, right? It's not their problem that they don't trust you. It's not their problem that they have to shop around. It's your problem. You didn't do your job in the beginning. You didn't build trust. You didn't build certainty. Something about what you said leaves them doubts. If there are no doubts, they'll go ahead and buy it. And then finally, you have to in order to make them commit, you have to paint a very clear picture, step by step. First, this is going to happen, then that's going to happen, then this is going to happen, then that's going to happen, and then your problem will be solved. And you can show them that through testimonials. You can show them that through, videos or slides or however you present that. But in order to get somebody to move forward, they've got to do all these, they have to have desire, certainty, and trust, but they also have to have a clear picture of what's going to come. If there's any uncertainty, if there's any doubt or uncertainty, or they're just not sure what's going to happen, it means the picture's not clear in their mind. So what you want to do anytime you hear an objection is you want to find out why are you saying that? Like, what's going on in your mind? Where have I failed? Not where have you failed? Where have I failed to really build that picture in your own mind? So every objection can be traced back to one of these psychological elements. And here are multiple techniques Okay. So let's talk about these techniques and then we'll go back to those objections. The simplest technique, I just call it 1, 2, 3. Agree, paraphrase, and ask a question. I can't afford it. Mr. Customer, I certainly understand that. $20 a month is a lot of money. I completely agree. Agree, paraphrase. But let me ask you this. Why, we had this conversation. You told me about this problem. Why is, $20 a month too much? Ask a question to uncover. What is it you're still uncertain about? Right? So that's called agree, paraphrase, ask a question. That's my go-to. Anytime I hear an objection, and by the way, when you do a good job of listening and building trust, you don't get a lot of objections. In fact, if you ask all the top salespeople in the world and you go up to them because they don't want to talk to you about selling. If you're at a party, they want to have a party. But if you're at a party, you ask a top salesperson, how do you handle the such and such objection? What do you do when they say they can't afford it? You know what every top salesperson will tell you? I don't really get that objection. I don't really get a lot of objections because they're top salespeople, because they're able to build trust. So they don't get a lot of objections. But when they do, this is the best way to handle it. I completely understand what you're saying. I agree. Yeah, that makes sense. Then you paraphrase, $20 a month is a lot of money. That's one less cup of coffee at Starbucks. I get it. But let me ask you, what would be a fair price? Or why do you say it's too expensive? Or what are you comparing it to? Or I thought you had such and such a problem and I thought you were really ready to solve it. What changed? Ask a question, get them to talk. Now, feel, felt, found, you've all heard of that. This is just the same as agree and paraphrase. It really is. I completely understand what you're saying. $20 a month is a lot of money. I know how you feel about that. Most of my customers all felt the same way. Where was the extra $20 a month going to come from? They were worried about it. They all felt the same way. But what they found, Mr. Customer, was once they moved forward, that they got more than $20 in value, and that, Bob, they don't really think about the money anymore. They think about the wonderful solution that we've given them. And then feel, felt, found, you should always end it with, and here's one more thing I want you to consider. Okay, I understand how you feel. It is a lot of money. All my customers felt the same way. What they found was when they finally moved forward, blah, 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 blah. And here's another thing you should consider. And usually you want to give 2 more things to consider, sometimes even 3 more things to consider. So you're in handling the objection, you're agreeing with it, you're explaining that it's not at all uncommon. I completely understand how you would feel that way. Everyone felt the same way, but once they move forward, here's what they found. Another thing you really want to consider in this decision is this. In other words, you're moving them away from the objection and you're moving them on to something else, something positive to consider. That feel, felt, found plus 1 more thing to consider is very, very powerful. Another way you can handle an objection is, the price is too high. I got to think about it, talk to my partner. That's interesting. Why do you say that? Now, you wouldn't say that in many cases, but if someone in particular, you would use that if somebody makes a negative comment about you, the product, the solution, whatever it might be. Rather than defend it, you might want to say, that's really interesting that you say that. What makes you say that? Again, give them the opportunity to express. Just because they give you an objection doesn't mean they're not going to buy. It doesn't mean that they're not going to have that objection in 30 seconds. It just means right now, this is the way you're handling it. And almost all of these are what I call jujitsu flips. The 4th one on the list is reframe the objection into a question. Well, and I want to, sorry, I should have said this earlier. There are 3 things you want to consider when people give you objections. There are questions, there are concerns, and objections. A question is a buying sign. When someone asks you a question, we're going to, I already said, and when it talked about closing, we'll teach you how to close on a question. So somebody asks good questions, that's a great question. Let me answer the question. And then you close on the question. And I showed you my permission close or my here's what happens next close. You want to close on a question. A concern is, it sounds good, but I'm a little worried about this maybe not working for my personal situation. So a concern is not an objection. They're not telling you they're not going to do it. They just have a few concerns or worries. And then finally, there are objections. Objections are, I'm not doing this because of this. So objection is a more final statement. So when you hear an objection or a concern, a very powerful technique is to reframe it into a question. You know, I don't really have the budget for this. You know, this is not something we can afford. So what you're really asking is, what's the return on your investment? And then you talk about the positive return on investment, or you word it however you want. Or somebody says, you know, I need to talk to my partner. You know, that's what you're really asking me when you say that. What you're really saying is, you're still not sure about such and such. Am I right? Yeah, you're right. Well, let me explain that to you. It's very, very powerful. And I can give you some more examples if you'd like. And then finally, not every objection is an objection. Sometimes they're what I call complaints. People are just complaining about, they're worried about spending the money. They're worried about doing something without their partner. They could, of course, do something without their partner. They can, of course, afford it, but they give you the objection. So what you do is you just acknowledge it. Yep. $10,000 is a lot of money. Have I explained how the other thing works there? I don't think I talked about that yet. And just move on to a positive subject. And you always have to be ready with positive things to say about your product or service. So with these 5 in mind, if anybody would like to volunteer, and I would say probably the most common thing is, I'll just say, you know, I'm not really ready to make a decision today. Give me a call back early next week. Would anyone like to use one of these 5? Don't make me pick on you. Then it'll be worse. Then it'll be more pressure. So I say, yeah, you know, I really, you know, I need to really think about this. This is an important decision. Give me a call next week. Oh, maybe you don't know this. You would actually just unmute yourself and then just jump in.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, David.
So, yeah, I'm not quite sure I want to do this. I'd like to think about it, Alan.
No, I'm going to tell you, I'm not quite sure I want to do this, David. This is a really important decision. It's a lot of money. Give me a call in a couple of weeks. How would you answer that?
Couple of weeks, okay. Well, it sounds like you're not sure about something, Alan.
Which one are you using?
I'm not. I was distracted, frankly. Okay, so you'd like to give me, well, I was trying the first one.
All right. So how would that go? I say, David, you know, you're a good guy, but I'm not ready to do this today. Can you give me a call in a couple of weeks?
So, okay, so a couple of weeks. All right. So it sounds like you're not sure. Can you give me some idea of what you'd like me to call you back about?
Okay. So first of all, for everybody here, you got to practice these, right? This is how you make your money, right? This is money right here. So you're going to hear, even though they love you and all things are great, you've built trust, you've done everything else I told you to do, you're still going to get people that come at it from a negative, either a viewpoint of lack, or they just resist making a decision, or maybe they don't have a strong desire, or maybe they have to shop around or whatever. So what I would say when somebody says, yeah, you know, this is an important decision, I need a couple of weeks. Yeah, I completely understand. Agree, paraphrase, ask a question. I completely understand. You know, this is a very important decision. It's going to affect your family or your business, you know, for the next several years. So let me ask you this. What is it? You must still be uncertain about a few things, and I can respect that. What are those things that you're just not certain about yet? And now you turn it back to the customer, and well, it's not that I'm not certain. And then they have to go through the whole explanation and the whole thing. You ask more questions, and now you circle back and close again. You can try for the close again. Anyone else want to try it? Maybe give you a different one. I think the one I'm going to use is I need to talk to my partner. By the way, after I told you earlier that I didn't need to talk to my partner, but I'm going to tell you I need to talk to my partner. Anybody want to take that one?
That's interesting. You had mentioned earlier that you're in a position where you can make this decision yourself. Is there something that may have changed along the way that is preventing you from moving forward to this?
Yeah, perfect. No, I have nothing to add to that. The only thing is, you just want you're opening the conversation, and what you're really trying to find out is, what are the uncertainties, plural. What are the things you're still not comfortable with?
Right. So
Yeah.
I would say, you know, along the
Perfect.
lines of That's fine. You had mentioned that, you were in a position to make this decision yourself, but that seems to have changed now. And there's usually a couple reasons behind that. Um, Usually this is a result of you not being sure about something within our offering. Is there something more I need to cover on this to help you understand a little bit more clearly about how this is going to bring value to your organization?
Yeah. So that was a yes or no question. The first one was better. The first time you said it was better. You want to ask, what are you uncertain about? Obviously, there are still a few things on your mind that you're not comfortable with. What is it? What are those uncertainties?
Right.
Yeah. As opposed to,
Okay.
is there something? No, you did a good job. I just need to talk to my partner. Because if you ask me a yes or no question, I'm just going to say, no, nothing really you need to go over again. I just need to talk to my partner.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Let me put these in the chat so I can be on the camera as well. All right. Anybody else want to step up?
Give me another one.
All right. It really looks good, to be honest with you. I'm going to give you the one the other guy gave me earlier. Maybe it was you, but it really looks good, but that's more than we need. I think that just is overkill for us.
Well, I think that when you take a look at what the offering actually is and you compare it to the things that we've discussed that we both agree are problems that you need to solve, I think that you're going to see that not only is this not too much, but I think you're going to see this is actually the right fit, because I can show you how this will point by point answer every one of the problems that we identified when we first started talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, I think you're going to see that it's not too much. I think you're going to see that it's actually the perfect fit, and that even looking around further wouldn't really help you out any, because you're going to find that this, once we go through this again and go through all of the points that identified your problem, you'll see how everything in this solution achieves those goals that you've laid out, and leaves no extraneous things in there that you don't actually need.
So that was good. Way too long. So what you want to do, the feel, felt, found formula is perfect. And you want to spend more time, not more time, but you want to spend an extra sentence in the beginning. I understand how you feel. This package could be overwhelming. There are a lot of features in it. I completely understand. And a lot of our customers, had that same exact reaction. They felt the same way when they first saw it. What they found after they implemented it, though, was that each of those features has a really important place in your business or in your family or whatever it might be. And now they're loving it. And I just want to also draw your attention to one more thing that I maybe have skipped over, and now you're done. You've moved on to another topic. So
Right.
so there are some strategies and objections where you want to push it back on them and let them express whatever it is. There are others, particularly the price objection, because we know that at least more than half the time, or if you're talking to them and you've gone through the whole presentation, you should know that they can afford it, right? That it is going to be a good fit for them. Otherwise, you're wasting both of your time. So you go through it, sweep it aside, and then pivot to something else positive. Have I shown you, like in health insurance? Yeah, I mean, I understand $800 a month's a lot of money. Right now, you have no health insurance. All of a sudden, now you got to pay $800 a month. That's $10,000 a year. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's real money. I understand how you feel. Everyone that shops for health insurance has to go through that same experience of, wow, that is a lot of money. They all felt the same way. But what they found was the peace of mind, blah, blah, blah. Hey, have we, verified if your doctors are going to be in network or something like that? So that's why the feel, felt, found, you want to always end it with, hey, have I mentioned this? Just move on to a different topic. So some objections, you want to engage and really rehash the conversation, go over the problems again, et cetera. Other objections, you want to acknowledge and move on to something positive. So that feel, felt, found plus more to consider is exactly the same as acknowledge and move on. It's just using, and the feel, felt, found formula is really powerful. When you hear it on the other end, wow, you're right. He acknowledged how I felt. He said, yeah, I can understand how you feel. That is a lot of money. or I could understand how you feel. Our offering has a lot of options. I understand how you feel. That beginning of it is really important. The agreeing and the paraphrasing and saying, hey, I get what you're going through right now. Very powerful.
No, that makes sense. That's yeah, I like that. I think that really makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The whole feel thing. Yeah. No, I understand how you feel. A lot of my customers felt the same way in the beginning.
No, you
too.
want to add one more sentence to that. I understand how you feel. Then you have to paraphrase it. It is a lot of money, or it is complicated, or it can be overwhelming.
Yeah, it's an overwhelming
Yeah,
thing.
whatever the thing is. I understand how you feel. Yeah, maybe you feel like you are, being asked to make a quick decision. I get it. And all of our customers have to go through that same process. It's a natural way to feel about it. But what you'll find is once you make this decision and it's off your plate, you're going to feel fantastic, man. You're going to be doing backflips. Have I mentioned the other thing that I don't think I covered that? And now you're off to a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I like that.
Leave it in the rearview mirror if you can.
Great. Sorry, I might sound funny. My battery on my headset just died, so I'm actually working on off my phone right now, speaker.
You're good. Anybody else want to take a practice run at it? And by the way, the vast majority of objections that you're going to get are related to trust. Until you learn how to actually listen and really ask exploratory and value questions in the beginning, and it takes a lot of effort to change the way you sell, from jumping into your presentation right off the bat to slowing down and asking all those questions. But once you do that, your number of objections is going to go way down, but you'll still get objections. But the vast majority of the objections that the average salespeople hears is almost always based on trust. Certainty, in a way, is a trust-based objection. I got to shop around. I don't trust what you're saying. I don't trust you. I don't trust your company. What about, what? I'd like to buy this, but your company is so new. I'm not really sure I want to work with a company that doesn't have a track record. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Or how long have you been doing it?
That's interesting. Why do you say that?
Try to reframe the objection into a question. Yeah, it sounds good, Frank, but you guys haven't been in business long enough. The guys I'm with have been doing this, they've been doing my lawn for 10 years. I don't know who you guys are. I don't really want to, start with somebody new.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to work with people that you don't trust and that you don't really know. So let me ask you, how did you feel about it when you first hired on the crew that you have now? Because at some point they were brand new too.
Mm-hmm. Great, that's excellent. When I say what I want to share with you is this idea of reframing the objection into a question. So somebody says, I can't work with you guys, are new in the market. I'd rather work with someone, that's got a track record. That's a great question, because what you're really asking is, how are we going to stand behind our product? Let me tell you how we do that. Let me tell you why our customers love working with us. You just say, hey, that's a great question. They give you an objection. You reframe it as a question. That's a great question. What you're really asking is this. Let me explain to you why our customers love working with us. Bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And now all of a sudden you're on your territory. In other words, it's just, all of these, there's two types of handling objections. One is to go face to face with them and let them talk through it. Like, where's the uncertainty? What are you worried about? The other is just put it in the rearview mirror. It's just yeah, that's a great question. Have I told you about this yet? Let me tell you about this new thing. And you just put it in the rearview mirror and you just ignore the objection. So there's a couple here, like agree, paraphrase, ask a question. That's getting into asking the question. That's interesting. Why do you say that? That's asking for more from the customer. These other ones are acknowledging it or reframing it and moving on to something that you want to talk about. And I really like this.
I would also add to that. I would say, if someone is saying, oh, I don't know, you guys are new, I've had these guys for 10 years. My response would be, that's great. That's a real valid concern. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about a bad experience that you might have had along the way that might lead you to believe that that going with someone that hasn't been around for very long might be a bad decision for you.
Yeah. Have you been burned in the past by, changing vendors like that? Yeah,
I was burned.
And when they say, yes, I have been burned in the past, now they're releasing their psychic energy. They get to tell you their story and they get to tell you everything they want to tell you. And you ask more and more and more. Well, I understand how you feel. I mean, those are some pretty serious issues. And what you're really asking is, how are we going to support you moving forward? So let me explain how our support structure works.
Yeah, I mean, you might say, "Oh, gee, wow, they walked through your garden and trampled all over your flowers. Wow, that's not very good." Well, let me tell you how we prevent that kind of thing from happening.
Exactly. That's a very valid concern. Let me explain to you how we do it. Perfect. Yeah. And all these five, look, I mean, there's no perfect sale, right? I've tried for 100 years. I've never made one sale perfect. I never did one thing without either interrupting somebody or missing a key point or hanging up, said I should have said this instead of that. These things are these are real-time experiences. That's why I love selling. I used to be an umpire, a baseball umpire for 8 years. And I love that because you could read the rule book all you want, and then you go out there in a game and it's three-dimensional, it's in real time, and you have to not only make a decision, but you have to have the mechanics right. You've got to do everything right and in real time and respond to what's happening in real time. And sometimes you get a manager coming out yelling at, sometimes you get a kid throwing the bat, he's pissed off, things happen, and you have to know how to handle all that. It's why same reason I love sales, because sales is not a cookie cutter. You can make it a cookie cutter if you're really good at it, but it's not, because everyone's a little bit different. And some people hit you with an objection from left field, or just be busy on the other end of the phone, not even paying attention to you. You have to handle so many real-time situations that the odds of you saying the perfect thing are very low. But if you train and think about these things and practice and record yourself, you'll start hearing where you missed your opportunities. And recording yourself, by the way, is the most powerful thing you can do to improve. But when you listen to yourself, when you listen to your buddy next, in the cubicle next to you, and you guys critique each other, when you really study this stuff, you have a much better odds of saying the right thing, taking the right path. It's not a perfect or a pure science. It's an art and a science. And it's the art part that I love the most.
Can I ask you something then? Does it make sense to, depending on, what your business is? I know there's people selling health insurance. There's me selling, IT managed services.
By the way, before you jump in, it's a little bit after 7. If you need to leave, just leave. I'm going to stay probably for another, 15, 20 minutes, and we'll keep going until nobody wants to talk anymore. So go ahead, Frank. Sorry to interrupt.
Does it make sense to spend some time putting together every possible objection that you've probably heard, and maybe some you haven't heard, but you know you're gonna? Would it make sense to, write all those down and come up with things to say for each one of those various objections that might come up in your line of business?
Sure. So you can use index cards where you say, can't afford it, don't want to do it. But what you really need to do is you need to go through 10 presentations and 10 closes, and then find out what the real objections are and what they really mean. Because you could say you can't afford it, but that means something different to somebody who sells health insurance than somebody who's, repairing a leak in a roof. Dude, you better afford it because your roof's leaking, they mean different things. But you can use index cards. On one side of the card, you put the objection, on the other side, you put your response. I find that when I use index cards, it's great, but then I just forget to use them, or I put them on a file in my computer and I just forget to use them. So I go back and study them and refresh my memory, because I have forgotten more about sales than I ever knew. The point is not what you did in the past. The point is how you're responding right now. So the more disciplined you are, the more well-trained you are, the more, like, I feel like I feel like I'm a coach. If I listen to recordings, I can start to coach you and say, hey, when you said that was, you cut the customer off. You really probably should have said this instead. Or this is a really good example of when you could have used this technique. And it's never perfect. It's the craziest thing. Every sale is a little bit different. You start to, though, get into patterns. And as long as those patterns are high level performance, when you get into low performance patterns where you're just letting people off the hook or not building rapport, whatever you're doing, you're repeating the low level patterns. You want to get yourself to high level patterns and then try to repeat those so that they come without having to look at index cards. But yeah, looking at cards, reading books, all that, obviously it's just more mental food for you.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as an umpire, you can't bring the rule book out and say, wait a minute, I got to look up the rule on whether that's a strike or a ball.
Right. And of course, we
So,
never make
having a bunch of
mistakes.
index cards
Yeah.
when you're right in the heat of trying to do a deal with somebody, um, you can't really stop and say, hang on, I got to check all my index cards to find the appropriate response to your objection.
Yep.
You gotta kind of really have all that stuff in your head right now.
Well, it's
You
all
have to be
training,
glib, like, yeah,
Tom Brady watches hours of film so that when the play comes, it's the one shot and he hits it,
yeah.
because he knew it was coming. He didn't know when it was coming, but he sees it. It's all about preparation. I built this book so that you would like leave it on your desk and just like randomly flip the different pages. And
Where
say,
do
oh,
I buy
wow,
that
yeah,
book, Alan?
yeah, that's good. It would be on Amazon, Big Book of
Yeah,
Sales.
okay.
Yeah.
Sure, where else, right?
Uh-huh.
Stupid question.
Any other questions? Anybody want to handle some objections? Anyone want to give me an objection? I believe these 5 things would be useful to tape up onto your computer so that you would be able to bounce around between feel, felt, found, and reframing the question and just saying, it's really interesting. What makes you say that it's too expensive?
It's not really that complicated, is it?
No, I think selling's a beautiful thing, and you make
Yeah.
money. You make money from
Well,
listening to people.
I'll be honest with you, Alan. I mean, I've been in the business for a long time. I've been in the IT business since 1992. So that'll tell you a little bit about how old I am. But I was a technician in the field for many years before I joined the dark side of sales, which I always say quite laughingly, I've joined the dark side. But, so, I mean, I've closed, more deals than I can shake a stick at, but I've also lost a lot more of them than I've actually won. And so my goal out of all of this is to find out, why did I lose those other ones? And some of them I look at and I go, damn, how could I have lost that one? What was I thinking when I said that? And so really what I'm trying to get out of all of this is how do I, find the right things to say at the right time so that I don't let that big fish off the hook. And I look back at a bunch of the ones that I've lost and, I want to punch myself in the head because I think, well, why did I say that? What was I thinking? And why did I not have a response to, hey, that's all great. I really love this. Think about it, and I'll call you back in 2 weeks, and then you call them because they don't call you, and then they're
you're in a chase
they
mode.
go dark
no
on
way to have
you,
fun.
and it's radio silence, and then it's over, right?
So I said it in the book. I said sales is an art and a science, and it's really an art of. It's a science because it's repeatable, because everyone has to go through those 4 same checkpoints. If they don't have those, if they just don't do it, they're not going to buy. It's scientific. If they do have the 4, they're going to buy every time. So it's an art, though, how to get those check boxes checked and really try to pull out the right phrase at the right time. And like I said, I've forgotten more than I remember. I read this book again. I open the page and I watch my own videos from 8 years ago, and I'm like, wow, that's really good advice. I should be doing that. You forget more than you know. But whatever you bring your current state to this sale, you've got to be amped up. You have to be awake. You have to be ready. You got to have energy flowing. You got to be focusing. You got to bring your A game to every sales call. That my father told me. Story about Joe DiMaggio, great Yankee player. He always played every play full speed. Even in the middle of the summer, they'd be in Milwaukee. There'd only be 2,000 people in the stands. And he was sliding into third, stretching a double into triple. And he was interviewed, why do you do that? He said, well, because most of the people who buy a ticket, it's like a dad spending a week's pay to take his son to the game. And so I'm going to give them the absolute best performance that I can every time. And that's what you have to do. You give the same presentation over and over and over again, but that customer never heard it. You have to give your best performance. You have to be ready for the tough customer who's trying to push you off to an assistant or push you down the road or whatever. And all they're doing is deflecting from solving the problem. And so you either do 2 things. You either say, hey, you're deflecting from solving the problem. Tell me more about what you're uncomfortable with. Let's talk more about you. Or, yeah, whatever, you're deflecting the problem. You know what? whatever. I'm going to put that in my rearview mirror. And let's now talk about this. Either way, you have to learn how to get past these people because that's how you make money. If you close the easy ones, you can make a living. If you close the hard ones, then, you know, you really move towards legend status, and that's what you want.
Great.
All right. So we'll take a break here, and that'll be it for the day. And if there's any questions about any topic, now would be a good time to ask. I'm a little open-ended with my time here. So anybody have any questions?
I'm all good. Lots to think about.
Good.
Great session, Tom. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad we'll be here every Tuesday. As long as I can. All right, guys. I'll see. Oh, I did want to, for the members, I do want to share my screen one more time. For those of you in the members library, I would highly recommend, where are we? Here we are. The one section in the members library is this jujitsu, the sales jujitsu techniques, where you start from a negative and flip them to a positive. Some of what we talked about today, handling objections, is going to be covered in there. But we also have jujitsu techniques for cold calling, you know, real examples, et cetera. There's about 6 or 7 different jujitsu techniques that I go over. They're all the same. Start with a negative. Yeah, I completely understand why you would say that, you know, but have you considered this? Let's talk about something positive. So those are some jujitsu techniques. It's in the library. You'll see it under sales jujitsu. So if you haven't watched those videos and you do want to just sharpen up your objection handling, those jujitsu techniques will be a good refresher. So just saying that for the members. All right, guys, I will, members, I'll talk to you guys on Monday, and see you on the chat, and everyone else, I'll see you guys back here on Tuesday.
Thanks again.
All right. Very welcome. All right. Have a good night.
Thank you, Alan.